Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 1st Planning and Zoning meeting. Tonight on the agenda, we have one public hearing, 2 letters of recommendation, 1 information report, 1 amended site development plan recommendation, and 2 other items. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Helfrey. Commissioner Rubis.
Here.
Commissioner Cohn.
Here.
Commissioner Broyles.
Here.
Commissioner Clayton.
Here.
Commissioner Depler. Here. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Chair Beatty.
Here.
Councilmember Bros.
Here.
And Mayor Boland.
Here.
Thank you.
Can I get an approval of the minutes from March 4th, please? Approval by Commissioner Rubis, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Motion passes with 1 abstention. Thank you. All right, let's hear. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, obviously with the weather situation outside, we do appreciate everyone's attendance, including the public. We do have a plan if there is the need to leave the council chambers. We do have a safe zone behind you and out the door. So don't worry, we have something in place if we need to. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And radar looks like the storms are north of here and moving northeast. So fingers crossed. All right. And now it'll be public comment session. As a reminder, 3 minutes per speaker, and I will give you a 1-minute warning. Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Mr. Gunther.
City of Wildwood Architectural Review Board. I'm a resident of this area since 1966, a founding member of the city, 95, first Planning and Zoning Commission, 95 to 99, founding member of the ARB, 97, and had served on it as vice chair, chair, and secretary, 97 to 2014. I've served the city of Wildwood continuously for its first 19 years, and then some. In reading the information report by the Department of Planning, options range from retaining the ARB to eliminating it. Hopefully the ARB is retained and registered architects serve, so it is truly an architectural review board. Perhaps the ARB is reduced to 3 members, all residents, hopefully licensed architects. Of concern, though, they may also be non-residents and the city will compensate them for their service. Why not seek architects who would volunteer their services to their city? Why allow non-resident architects to control the direction of our town center and architectural design? Term limits might be extended from 3 to 5 years, allowing volunteers to serve up to 10 years. Will they be architects with the needed qualifications? Can they ever serve again? If so, when? One goal is to offer a more coordinated workflow for developers, builders, residents, and others. Please note from its inception, the ARB, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Department of Planning have worked together effectively and collaboratively with very positive and high quality results. This arrangement was like a 3-legged stool, each in support of the other, and it was a system of checks and balances. It was very efficient and effective. As architects and problem solvers, we offered creative input to petitioners, resulting in better designs and more cost-effective approaches. If you want to frustrate developers and petitioners and slow down the review process, then have an ARB without architects. They'll do just that. If you want mediocre architecture and a town center, then dissolving the ARB or an ARB without architects will lead to those results.
1 minute.
Please stop blaming the lack of architects to serve on the Architectural Review Board after imposing term limits for service, a self-inflicted condition to ruin the ARB. Why not review term limits? Why not ask city resident architects to serve on the ARB? Good design is addressed by solving a problem directly. The same applies to addressing stated concerns regarding the ARB. Please do not dissolve the ARB with architects, which is needed now more than ever. This is no time to abandon a well-established framework for our built environment and a quality built environment which our citizens count on. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Vedvig.
Don't start. I mean, we hear the siren. We don't have to stop, right? Okay. It's not gonna happen in my 3 minutes, is it? All right. Okay. All right, thank you. I'm here to speak on the information regarding the Architecture Review Board tonight. And I would ask that going outside this,
Address, please.
okay,
I know who you are, but we need,
okay, are we gonna start over though?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Jean Vedvig, 16709 Clayton Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to speak on the Architecture Review Board information report tonight. And going outside the city for boards and commissions just doesn't seem right. People who live here, like yourself, will benefit from the results of their decisions. You make decisions based on Wildwood, not on other municipalities. We presently do have volunteer architects who would probably like to serve. Maybe we need to revisit that. I know, you know, it's been a different process over the time. And as Joe's report points out, there are 14 right now that we know of. So if we could think about this, I previously enjoyed and was honored to serve on the Planning Commission like yourself. And the Architecture Review Board often provided valuable support for the Planning and Zoning Commission because Planning and Zoning Commissioners are from their ward and they represent the citizenship of this city. They are not architects. So the architects were a valued tool for the planning commissioners. So a good example was the ARB often saved petitioners time and money. There's a Southwestern Bell development on Old Manchester, and it was a really interesting story, and we should investigate that. So there are many, many success stories of the City of Wildwood and the Architecture Review Board, the Planning Commission, and the City Council working together for the benefit of the city. Wildwood has demonstrated the benefit of having a companion board for the Planning Commission, and the evidence is touchable right here in Town Center. It's across the city, but it is really obvious here. So
1 minute.
thank you. If there are any questions tonight during your discussion, I would encourage you to maybe even engage with Mr. Gunther if you would feel like it. But the ARB has no political or financial motivation, like they're just like P&Z. There's no political or financial motivation here. They are motivated by civic duty. And oftentimes the ARB took the heat off the Planning and Zoning Commission. They pretty much helped to carry the water for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And 180 seconds is really a hard time to have a comprehensive conversation. So I would ask that you have a work session on a separate night and engage the public and potential architects who live in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that was the final speaker card for the public comment session.
All right. And
Mr. Bosworth has indicated he wishes to speak.
oh, okay.
Good evening. I'm Tony Bosworth, TB Realty, and also Latitude N38 LLC, 2442 Etherton Road. You guys are going to find yourself in an awkward position in about 10 minutes regarding the Village Green. As you guys know, we presented a project immediately adjacent to the Village Green, Latitude N38. In that process, we met every written requirement of the city regarding zoning, density, et cetera, including use, which includes rentals, which is protected under the federal law. The city is about to embark on a Village Green project and has ignored every one of those written requirements of the city. We went concurrently with the Village Green through the Town Center Update Committee, which was to include the redevelopment of Crestview Drive, the city park, and including the changing of the zoning designation under the master plan for our property, which was Neighborhood General, which we met the requirements. Crestview is a private street. You guys have heard this numerous times, and it was ignored. The city has access to the street to construct the road. However, we look for the city to maintain the street during that construction. However, the city does not have the right to grant public access from the north or west of the Village Green property. Under that scenario, we expect that it'll be fenced off and that access will be blocked. You will see in your plan that there's a pathway to the northwest of the Village Green giving access to our private road. The city required numerous improvements to Main Street, including widening, including sewage modifications, moving the sewer lines, and updating the water line. The city plans on constructing the Village Green without any of that. Now, the response was that there'll be no buildings on it, so we don't need sewer, et cetera, et cetera. Does that mean I can develop my ground without putting houses on it and still do all the improvements without having to do the improvements to Main Street or anything else? I don't think so. Again, Crestview is a private street for the benefit of the owners, the residents, and its invitees only. The city commenced removal of trees without the property even being zoned. Again, we anticipate that the property will be fenced to the north and west boundaries of the Village Green. We don't want 5,000 to 10,000 people trouncing down our private street when they don't have access. There's 15 parking spaces allocated for the city park. 15 spaces. You guys have been here for Dr. Vegas and that 80s band and some of these other events that go on here, including Celebrate Wildwood, even the tree lighting. That's more than 15 spaces. How are the people from the west going to access it? And where do they plan on parking once you guys put your park in? You're about to, again, embark on a very treacherous journey tonight if it comes before you, and we anticipate that it won't be approved. If a city private developer such as ourselves tried to do this, we'd be shot down. We'd have our constituents, neighbors, and everybody else up in arms. We aren't against the park. We just expect that if the park's going to be built under the same terms and the same modifications as Town Center Update, we expect that as a private developer, that the city would abide by the same rules that were modified and approved during the 27-month process and the additional 6 months to get through planning and zoning and city council. Again, we're not against the development. However, we expect the city to abide by the same rules that we adhere to. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, I believe that was the final speaker for the public comment session.
All righty. This time we'll go into our public hearing. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning this posted item. Since this request is being presented at a public hearing, no action is planned on this item tonight, and consideration of it is to be taken no earlier than the May 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at this hearing. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the Public Hearings Guidelines pamphlet, which can be found on the table at the entry area to the council chambers. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the Public Hearing Guidelines pamphlet, speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. Those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. In addition, information on this item can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation at tonight's hearing. All right, Mr. Vunich, PZ 2-24.
Mr. Chair, that's my fault. I'll take care of that one.
Oh, okay.
You read it right. I wrote it wrong.
All right.
PZ 2-24, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. A request for a change in zoning regarding a tract of land that is 6 acres in size, which is located on the south side of Crestview Drive at the current terminus of Main Street. Street addresses 16904 and 16916 Crestview Drive, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V 220013 and 23V 220123. That is currently designated the NU Non-Urban Residence District, Town Center Cultural Institutional District to the PS Park and Scenic District. The property is the future location of the city's Village Green, a master planned park and event space owned by the city of Wildwood. Construction of phase 1 of this park is planned to begin in spring 2024, Ward 8.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to Mr. Newberry as well. The department has just a few slides that it'd like to provide relative to the Village Green before it begins a very brief presentation relative to the current request that was just read into tonight's record. Through the benefit of Brian Gessling, who is a consultant with a firm called Human Nature that did the original master plan for the overall Village Green, we do have some images that are, I think, very helpful relative to tonight's discussion. The first image that's on the screen tonight is the aerial photography of the Village Green site, its relationship to City Hall immediately to the west and share a common boundary line, as well as the remainder of portion of Town Center, what I would consider the southeast quadrant of the Route 100, Route 109 interchange. As part of the aerial photography, you can see the Canberry development, both phases, the attached units, as well as the detached single-family units. Main Street Crossing, which is a development then by Payne Family Homes, now Fisher Homes. But equally important, as was described during public comments, you can see the portion of Main Street through Main Street Crossing out to Route 109. And then on the most right-hand side of the slide, you can see the 104-foot right-of-way that forms Main Street in front of City Hall and part of the downtown district. And here is the Village Green site just prior to the work beginning on the tree removal. And just the relationship to City Hall and the site itself, which previously had 2 dwellings on the property, one each for the 3-acre lots that were purchased by the city. And again, just drone images. This is for the most part looking toward the southwest from the area around City Hall. Again, drone images, this time looking toward the northeast. And again, you can see the 3-acre lots that form the 6-acre tract. The easternmost 3-acre lot was more of a field or turf area, and the westernmost 3-acre lot has some of the larger tree stands. And here is a generalized site development plan of phase 1. The project will be completed in 3 phases. Phase 1, for the most part, is the civic green, the oval, and then all of the utilities, inclusive of electric, and then the work that will coordinate or integrate City Hall into phase 1 of Village Green. And then finally, the more, I would call, aesthetic image of Village Green, the final master plan. And as is referenced in the primer, over 1,000 residents participated in the design of our Village Green. It was done at the start of the pandemic. It was done all online. It was very successful. And as mentioned, there are 3 phases. Phase 1 is to basically get started. Phase 2 will include the water play and adventure play areas, along with what we hope is the extension of Main Street And then finally, phase 3 will be the observation tower and some of the trail system in association with it. Phase 2 will also include the pavilion. There are no structures planned on the site at this time. As you know, when we do concerts, we have a temporary stage. So we're hoping that phase 1 will get us started, and then the future phases will follow in support of those. And Mr. Chair, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight the zoning primer that provides some background details relative to the Village Green. In 2018, the city purchased 2 3-acre lots immediately west of City Hall with the intent to create a town center park. Over the course of discussions between 2018 and 2020, the decision was made to make it a Village Green, which would also be the performance space for many of the city's events, inclusive of the concert series and Celebrate Wildwood, its annual event. As part of the primer, there are a number of items. First and foremost, you have a series of engineered plans that reflect phase 1. And then next you have the actual master plan document that was formulated over the course of that 2+ year period of time, and with the input of 1,000 residents or more. Tonight, the department is presenting to you a request to rezone the properties from NU Non-Urban Resident District to PS Park and Scenic District. As part of this process is standard in that the zoning should reflect use. Previously, when there were 2 homes on the 6-acre site, the non-urban resident district was satisfactory for that. Now that it is city-owned, part of the cultural institutional district of the town center plan, and intended to be a park site, the Park and Scenic District is the best approach to manage future zoning decisions relative to the properties. I would note that the non-urban district, as part of the list of permitted uses, does allow public parks. So from that perspective, the zoning is appropriate, but not necessarily essential to proceed forward with phase 1. Also, just in the future, with the support of City Council and the mayor, the intent would be to consolidate all 3 lots, the 2 lots that form Village Green and City Hall, to create a single tract of land that ultimately would be under the ownership of the city of Wildwood. So tonight, the department is presenting to you for public comment the rezoning of the 6-acre tract of land that will eventually be our Village Green. If there are any questions on the part of the commission members, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. And I'm assuming that we'll have public comment relative to the rezoning of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Are there any comments, Mr. Newberry?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The first speaker is Mr. Goss.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Brad Goss. My address is 120 South Central, Suite 1200, and Clayton, Missouri 63105. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I do represent the Latitude 98 LLC developers of the property that is on the south side of Crestview Drive. Their entire northern boundary is Crestview Drive. And as you know, they had a project that is being considered by the city at this time. The Crestview Drive is private, as it has been said several times in this hearing. And one of the things that concerns us is that this project, as Mr. Vinich said, has been going on the planning since 2020, and yet access, which is critical, hasn't really been addressed. There's a plan that he showed you that phase 2 is going to talk about improving Main Street and using Crestview Drive, but the residents of Crestview Drive haven't been consulted about that. And they're very concerned that if that is done as phase 2 and phase 1 has a completed park, that what's going to happen with Crestview Drive is that becomes the pedestrian walkway for all those people to the west who don't really have good access. And only for those folks in Canberra and the other subdivisions to have good access is the improvement of Crestview Drive, going straight through to Main Street. Otherwise, they have to go out on the interstate, circle around, and come back, and it's just running around your backhand. What we think is going to happen is Crestview Drive is still going to be a thoroughfare, May not be cars, it may be cars. We have trespassers, we'll have to deal with that. So we think this is an important issue that needs to be dealt with now and not dealt with later as part of phase two. We are also concerned that the plan shows a walkway going up to Crestview Drive, which reinforces our concern about pedestrians using Crestview Drive as their path of access to the park. And when really it's a private road. And so we think this is an issue that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed now with the city officials. And we would ask the planning commission to require that as part of this rezoning and part of this plan. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Bosworth.
Yeah, my name's Tony Bosworth, 2442 Etherton Road, latitude N38, TB Realty and Development. We have a couple residents here that will probably speak. However, the neighbors as a whole do not agree with the allowance of Crestview Drive to be used for public access, plain and simple. The Huskas, the Schmitz, Bosworths, Levinsons, Redekers, we're not allowing it. Mr. Day's here. It's not going to happen. So we expect that this will be treated as any other development. And if it was a public development, it would require public access. And we expect it to be treated just as any other development. And you know as well as I do, allowing 15 parking spaces during the events that you guys plan on having there is not going to allow for you guys to avoid using Crestview Drive. Again, we're not against the park. We're not against anything that helps the public as a whole. You've heard me use in numerous meetings here in front of you guys the phrase public-private partnership. We've worked at great length, starting at the same time, February of 2018, when I first submitted my first latitude N38 project for 12 units. Some of you even commented to me after the meetings, why don't you go back and do your 12 units on 3 acres? That ship sailed. You guys turned it down twice, not once. You turned it down once. And the mayor was kind enough to hold the vote until after the Town Center Update Committee, and you turned it down in February of 2021. So we expect that the park will be treated just like our project. And if you want to do the park project, we expect that Crestview will either be bought from us or the park project will be put on hold until such time that Crestview can be maintained and operated and purchased by the city or in conglomeration with other developments to make public access. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Day.
Chris Day, 16907 Crestview Drive. And everybody else has already stated a lot of things that I'm concerned about, but the parking is my biggest thing. And that if this phase one and people do use it, Crestview Drive, that it's a pretty broken up street and it'll probably just go to pieces as it is. And then there are a lot of potholes as far as like pedestrian traffic that would go up and down there. And then a bunch of the neighbors next to me as well said they're really not interested in having all that extra pressure. But I am all about the park. I like the park idea. I think it's a great thing. But I think we need to do something with Crestview Drive, either public access or something to make it so that, you know, we don't have to drive on this potholed road or people can twist their ankles or any other kind of issues that might be for that. And the parking that would be, if there is any big venues, you know, concerts or whatever, we're just worried about parking or people parking in grass or just parking in the road since it's only like 12 feet wide to get past cars and stuff. We want to come and go if there is some venue issue or venues going on. So that was just my concern. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any additional speaker cards.
Looks like Ms. Vedvig is bringing one up.
Jim Vedvig, 16709 Clayton Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011. I think this is a wonderful plan and it will certainly complement the nature of the community. And I understand the concern of the neighbors for parking, but when we've had big events up here, it spills over and the city is smart enough to get the buses to shuttle people back and forth. And we do have garage. And so with the thought in mind of the 15 parking spaces, the majority of the time, the Village Green will not be filled up with a huge group of people. So there's no need to overpark. And that's one of the good things about the city of Wildwood is the serious intent planning that they put forward on the parking and not overparking the city and putting a lot of asphalt down. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
No additional speakers, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Any discussion or questions from the commission? Mr. Vinich?
Mr. Chair, certainly the department recognizes the issues associated with Crestview Drive. We have the city attorney investigating them. These were issues when McBride Homes had contracts on approximately 8 of the 9 lots that front on the north side of Crestview Drive. So certainly we're aware of them. We did not proceed forward without abandon, so to speak, with abandon. We did it without abandon. And from that perspective, we have a parking structure that has 300 spaces. We have a main street that approximately has 30 spaces in the vicinity of City Hall. And we have the parking lot to the rear of City Hall. And so from the perspective of the department, we have approximately 400 spaces in the vicinity, a short walking distance to the Village Green. We also have an advantage no private developer has. We have the St. Louis County Police Department Wildwood Precinct to assist us during special events to ensure that traffic does not become an issue for our neighbors, and certainly from that perspective at any time. So again, I want you all as commission members to rest assured, as well as those that are in attendance that live on Crestview Drive, we haven't proceeded forward without thinking about parking issues, pedestrian access, etc. We had thought we had a solution when 2 developments were proposed on either side of Crestview Drive. That may not be the case. And so we'll do our very best as the city to ensure that if the Village Green is completed and available to the public, that we park it correctly and we operate it safely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Commissioner Boyles. All right. Commissioner Rubis, second. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
abstain? All right. Public hearing is closed. Thank you. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
is there action that you're requesting? And if so, what is that?
Mr. Mayor, we'll have the information report with recommendation available at the May meeting
Okay.
relative to the rezoning. Thank you for asking, though.
All right. Mr. Newberry, PZ 13-23.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
PZ 13-23,
Oh, sorry.
Union Electric Company doing business as Ameren, Missouri, 1901 Choteau Avenue, MC 700, St. Louis, Missouri, 63103, care of Susan Story, Selective Solutions LLC, 340 Marshall Road, Valley Park, Missouri, 63088. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, within the NU non-urban resident district for a 14.6 acre tract of land for which a portion of this lot to be utilized for a monopole type telecommunications facility along with an associated enclosed equipment area. This tract is generally located on the south side of St. Albans Road, State Route T, west of its intersection with State Route 100. Street address 18824 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County, locator number 24Y630140. Proposed use, a 199-foot telecommunications tower and related equipment area. Again, the tower is proposed to be a monopole type with exterior antenna arrays. This particular site is located in Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as part of the packet of information for this item that was just read into the record tonight, the first page of that packet of information is an email that the department received late in the afternoon on Friday from the petitioner's representative requesting that this item be withdrawn from the commission's agenda and that they don't plan to move forward with this project. So procedurally tonight, the bylaws speak to a withdrawal for an item for a public hearing. The code contemplates a withdrawal of conditional use permit request if it's for denial. In this instance, the conditional use permit recommendation is for approval. So at this time, the department is just asking that the commission have a motion, a second, and a voice vote to remove the item from its active agenda.
All right. Can I get a motion? Commissioner Rubus? All right, second. Second by Mayor Bullen. Any discussion? Oh,
Isn't this the one where there were some issues with laydown yards that had not been cleaned up? It kind of came up. And does that problem still persist? I know it got connected to this. And is the city doing anything about the laydown yards that citizens had issues with that have not been cleaned up?
With the chair's permission,
go ahead.
Mr. Jackson, the laydown yard that Ameren, Missouri had at that location for its contractors has been removed. In fact, last week we were supposed to have a final inspection to guarantee that all of the equipment had been removed and that ground cover had been established. It was one of those days though where rain was forecasted and it did rain that morning. So we're going to reschedule that site visit. But for the most part, the last visit that the department took on March 4th, the area was in fairly good shape.
Thank you.
All right. Can we just do it by voice vote? All right. All those in favor of removing from the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. It's abstention by Commissioner Clayton. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, PZ 26-23, Mr. Vunich. Or is it right now?
Yes, it's
All
correct.
right,
now.
Mr. Newberry.
First two were confusing. Sorry about that. PZ 26-23. Oh, excuse me. And I'm going to read PZ 26 and 27 and 28 at the same time. PZ 26-23, Fisher and Frickel Custom Homes LLC, care of Chris Against, 695 Trade Center Boulevard, Suite 200, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. A request for the modification of the Town Center Regulating Plan for a tract of land that is currently designated by it as Workplace District to the Neighborhood General District to accommodate its use for up to 34 single-family detached dwellings on individual lots with associated street and pedestrian networks, required public spaces, and stormwater management facilities, all in association with an 8.34 tract of land that is located at the northeast corner of State Routes 100 and 109, St. Louis County locator number 23V140245, 23V140218, 23V140162, and 23V140227. Street addresses 17100, 17130, and 17150 Taylor Road, and 2346 State Route 109, amended C8 Planned Commercial District and NU Non-Urban Residence District. And PZ 27 and 28-23, Fisher and Frickel Custom Homes LLC, care of Chris Against, 695 Trade Center Boulevard, Suite 200, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. A request for a change in zoning for a total of 4 properties which are currently designated either amended C8 Planned Commercial District, street addresses 17100 and 17130 Taylor Road, and 2346 State Route 109, St. Louis County locator numbers 23V140245, 23V140218, and 23V140227, and or NU Non-Urban Residence District, street address 17150 Taylor Road, St. Louis County locator number 23V140162, to the R4 7,500 square foot residence district with a planned residential development overlay district, such being an association with an overall tract of land that is 8.34 acres in size and located at the northeast corner of State Routes 100 and 109, west side of Taylor Road, formerly Etherton Road. Proposed use, a maximum of 34 single-family dwellings on individual lots with associated street and pedestrian networks, required public spaces, and stormwater management facility. This site is located in Ward 5.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration the draft of the final letter of recommendation regarding this series of requests. As was noted by Mr. Newberry as part of the record, the requests relate to a change in the regulating plan from a commercial designation to a residential type, and then the rezoning to support up to 34 single-family detached dwellings on individual lots. The intent of the project is to, for all intents and purposes, replicate Village E from the villages at Brightleaf. That is the village that's located across Taylor Road from the subject site. At the March 4th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the commission members voted favorably to proceed forward with all three of the requests and authorize the presentation of the report to City Council. Tonight, the report is in the appropriate form to be completed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and with a favorable vote forwarded to City Council for the required public hearing. If there are any questions regarding this draft letter of recommendation, Mr. Young, Mr. Newberry, and I are available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any discussion or a motion? All right, Commissioner Depler.
Yeah, hi. I apologize that I wasn't here last week or last month, but I was just wondering how this discussion went around residents' concerns about the increased density of approving this proposal, and if there was any accommodation by the developer to address those concerns that the residents brought up.
Or Mr. Vunich, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But Ms. Depler, prior to this particular set of requests going to public hearing, the Department of Planning met with the engineer of record and the representative from Fisher Frictal, and we talked through the components of the design, particularly density. And from the developer's perspective, this is the same density as Village E, which was part of the villages at Brightleaf. That was verified by the department, as well as the component of the zoning is consistent with other projects of this nature, those being Main Street Crossing, which is an R4 7,500 square foot resident district with a planned residential development overlay district. Certainly, there are those in the community that would like it to be 3-acre lots, but it is part of town center. It's currently designated workplace district, which would be a commercial project, which the department does not favor given current access and the development pattern that's now been established. And so from the perspective of the department, the density it will not be increased over 34 units. It may be decreased as we go through the final planning stages with public space, stormwater management, infrastructure, and utilities. But for the most part, the department has determined it as part of its report and recommendation to be consistent with the town center plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so have they met all the criteria for stormwater management and traffic concerns?
Yes, both the Department of Public Works and Mr. Brown is in attendance tonight, our director of the Department of Public Works, and the Department of Planning have reviewed it. We also asked for preliminary comments, if any, from the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. None of the stormwater generated by this project will cross to the east, Taylor Road, and be deposited in any of the stormwater management facilities that are part of the villages at Brightleaf. A key component of this project, which again, from the perspective of the department was a positive, is we're not doing bioretention basins. We're doing a lake, which will be an aesthetic feature and serve as well for stormwater management purposes. In terms of traffic, we believe the 34 units will be accommodated. There are road improvements required, and the developer and the city have discussed not only completing the roadway improvements along the property's frontage, but also extending them north to the intersection of New Taylor Road with Route 109, so we can address that narrower section of right-of-way and make it a safe street and a functional street for everyone. So again, you'll all see it as the Planning and Zoning Commission as we work through the site development plan review process and ensure that we have a functional, safe street and good stormwater management that's capped by a water feature that actually will have an aesthetic appeal, which we haven't seen recently with our bioretention basins.
Yeah, I agree. The other village at Brightleaf, some of their detention basins have a lot to be desired.
Yes, and Fisher Frickdale will tell you that the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District defined how they would look, function, and their location for all intents and purposes. And we've done our best through the escrow process, along with Fisher Frickdale, to ensure that ground cover is established, turf, and that the plantings in the basin are appropriate, and that we've screened them as best as possible with additional landscaping around the perimeter. But they are just in their initial stages, not very appealing.
All right, Commissioner Rubis?
Item.
Seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any further discussion?
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if Mr. Bros heard the motion, so. And so, Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind repeating it, so.
So the motion on the floor is to accept the department's recommendation, including all of the amendments in attachment B. All right, and subject attachment B. All right, any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
No.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis, Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Abstain.
Motion carries. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4.
7-1 with an abstention,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
all right, sounds good. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, Mr. Newberry, PZ 30-23.
PZ 30-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. A request for the consideration of the dissolution of the City of Wildwood's Architectural Review Board, ARB, by deleting in its entirety Chapter 415.220 Architectural Review Board requirements of the Code of Ordinances, while also evaluating other certain changes to Chapter 415.380 miscellaneous regulations of the same Code of Ordinances relative to Section 1, 2, items A through E. Architectural review in all zoning districts, while studying all available options to carry forward its current powers and duties thereafter, all wards.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinch.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a report with recommendation regarding the Architectural Review Board. In the first portion of that report, the department goes into extensive detail about the formation of the Architectural Review Board and its service over the past 28 plus years. It's important to note that when the town center plan was in development, the primary consultant, Andres Dewani, and his team emphasized the need for an Architectural Review Board, given the level of architectural guidelines that were being proposed as part of the city's town center, as well as many of the neighborhood design standards. Ultimately, there was the formation of the Architectural Review Board And it was 5 licensed architects along with eventually liaisons from the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. The department has witnessed over the last several years the efforts of Mayor Bolin and previous mayors to fill vacancies that formed on the Architectural Review Board. The amount of architects in the city isn't necessarily, obviously, as great as the number of residents. And so for the licensing purposes, it was a struggle at times, and vacancies were persistent. To address that at first, the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council authorized the engagement for membership of licensed engineers, registered engineers, urban planners, and landscape architects. Again, trying to fill the board with professionals that had background in land use and development areas. Even with that change, it became increasingly difficult. And one of the reasons is that our charter, the Constitution of the city, placed term limits on volunteers to no more than 2 terms. So many of the architects that were serving at the time of the charter's approval ended up having to leave, and now under the charter cannot be reappointed. So that number, that universe of 14 is difficult. Because again, many of those 14 have served on the Architectural Review Board at some point in the past 28 plus years. However, the department does recognize the benefit of the Architectural Review Board and, as was described, its relationship to this commission and to City Council. And now through our new sign regulations, the Board of Adjustment. So it is an integral part. The department has considered options, and certainly in the case tonight does not recommend a dissolution of the board. However, it is offering as an option the retention of the board, but a reduction in the overall number of members from 5 to 3. And the 3 members would be licensed architects that are residents of Wildwood. However, instead of backfilling with non-architects, the intent would be is to allow the mayor and city council to engage licensed architects as consultants, but no more than 2 of the 3-member board. There would always be a resident architect of Wildwood. There is a cost associated with this proposal, and that the consulting architects, if necessary, would obviously charge for their services. However, the hope would be with a reduced board, that issue would not necessarily arise. Also, as part of this, the terms would be extended from 3 years to 5 years, which means a qualified architect could serve up to 10 years. And we've actually had that happen. We've had a group of architects that actually are on the board for an extended period of time. Also, in this case, the department believes that the action of the Architectural Review Board would be forwarded first to the Planning and Zoning Commission for its determination, meaning we would actually integrate that cooperation that has existed over the course of almost 3 decades, and that the Architectural Review Board would be a recommender to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that the Planning and Zoning Commission would take final action. In the information report, the department defines up to 5 reasons why it believes the Planning and Zoning Commission's role should be expanded. Again, we would retain the Architectural Review Board, reduce its size, extend its terms, and along with that, have the potential for consulting architects to assist. But ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Commission, through its processes, would receive the recommendation and act upon it and forward such recommendations to City Council. And if there are appeals to the decision-making process, the Planning and Zoning Commission process is formulated to the City Council and its action relative to them. Again, it believes that it would create a coordinated workflow and ultimately is worth the attempt to try to address the current circumstances with our Architectural Review Board. Obviously, the department is presenting you quite a bit of meat on the bone. And so as part of that, it did offer, if there is a desire to hold a work session, that certainly could be scheduled. And with that, the department will conclude its presentation and accept any questions or motion if the commission should choose. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vinich. Mayor Bullen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had spoken offline with Travis about getting a copy of the minutes from our November meeting. I wasn't able to access those on my smartphone. I had an issue with that. Are you able to find those, Travis? Do you have them now?
Very soon, Mr. Mayor.
So you need a copy of the minutes.
No, from the.
Oh.
Get it from the-
A little quicker when I have a mouse in front of me.
I feel your pain. While we're waiting,
I had to
can,
get.
all right.
Well, I mean, I can, it's not essential if we don't.
Yeah, go ahead with your question, Commissioner Boyce.
Could you explain what's the length of those two?
Again, if you want an explanation of the charter amendment, that was prepared by our city attorney relative to the terms of volunteers on our boards, commissions, committees, task force. And I'll quiet myself and let Mr. Young explain it if he would, please.
You have that with you?
Just to make sure, are you just asking what the limitations on the charter provision? Well, the length of the term is not specified in the charter. It's just how many terms can be served.
Have a follow up that.
Yes. I think the term is.
Well, for the Architectural Review Board, it's 3 years. So that's a single term. And the department is recommending that be increased by 2 years to 5 years. That 5-year term would be similar to the Board of Adjustment. Members of the Board of Adjustment have a 5-year term. And so it's not out of the realm for a volunteer to accept a 5-year term. Board members on the Board of Adjustment members then can serve up to 10 years. Have had members that have served that full term.
And there is.
No.
You should go outside of those members to seek additional information. Okay. Thank you.
I just have a follow up. Sir, John. So you said there's nothing in the Constitution that says how long the term limits could be, but there is term limits. So if we made a change to a term limit per se, it affects other offices and other as well, or is it just the Architectural Board?
So the charter provision regarding appointed boards and commissions and term limits simply says that they cannot serve more than 2 full terms, but it does not state how long those terms are.
So we could not dissolve the 2 terms because it would affect other areas, but we can change the length of time to 5 years.
You can change the length of time, but to be clear, if a person is currently serving a 3-year term, they will continue until their 3rd year is up. And then assuming they are eligible for reappointment for a second term, their second term would be that 5-year term.
So any of the former founding members of the Architectural Board, they can never serve again because they're term limited out.
Well, the charter does provide that service resulting from an appointment made prior to that charter amendment does not count. So specifically, it says no time of service resulting from an appointment made prior to April 3rd, 2018 for service of less than a full term shall be counted.
So they could come. Okay. All right. I'll stop right there because
I am ready to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. The reason I'd wanted to see the minutes, and I got several thoughts here. I'm going to try to organize all these in cogent form, is to confirm what I thought was the case, which so in November of 2023, the commission was actually presented with a recommendation from the council's Planning and Parks Committee to dissolve the ARB, which is much different than what we see here this evening. And so we have these options presented that do not include dissolution. And at this point, given what we see from the department, I'm not necessarily in favor any longer of dissolution. I think some of these are good ideas, but this all started with dissolution, and that technically would be one of the options available to the commission. It's not listed in this report. But nevertheless, I would like to thank the department for coming up with these recommendations. And I guess I just want to, before I get to those recommendations, say I would strongly recommend we not have a work session to hash this again. This has been on the agenda since November. We've had lots of public discussion or public testimony about it. We've had discussion on the part of the commission about it. And I think, in City Attorney Young, I guess I would ask this to you as a question. If the commission takes action this evening relative to altering in some form the composition, length of service, or what have you, as indicated it could do in the department's report, that's going to go to the council for more discussion by the public and debate with the council. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would require a code change.
And that would require a public hearing. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
this isn't
I know, with all due respect, I just don't think we need to keep batting at this when we've got all of the history behind it already, plus more to go no matter what we do. So I would speak strongly against that. I would speak favorably in terms of what the department has come up with, but actually would combine 3 out of the 4 options, which would encapsulate all of it. Number 1, retaining the board. Number 2, reducing the size with the ability to fill those positions by licensed architects. If we can't get licensed architects, like either because they don't want to serve that are residents of the city, or they've already served because of term limits, or they may not be the best option to serve if they want to serve and are part of the city. And I'll come to that in a moment. That gives us greater flexibility. I think by virtue of having that, we would not need to extend the terms, but if the commission wanted to do it, I wouldn't really fight that battle. And then lastly, the item D, to revise legislation or revise the ordinance that would require those decisions by the board to come back to this commission. I think that just gives unity on the part of left hand, right hand. So in summation, my recommendation would be, and I'll make the motion for this, that we take A, B, and D, but not C, of the department's recommendation, and that be what goes to the city council for action. If anyone wants to amend it, if you're really married to extending the terms, by length of years, you can make an amendment to that motion. But I personally don't think that's necessary. A, B, and C, retaining the board by definition. If you do B, you get A by definition, and then D, for the reasons indicated, having those decisions by the ARB come back to the commission before they go to the council. And that's my motion. Before we get to a second on that, I would just want to say one of the reasons for my motion in terms of supporting strongly the department's recommendation as to B, which is to give flexibility to the mayor and the council in terms of the appointees to this, to go beyond the city of Wildwood with respect to architects. Number 1, I think the number is, what do we know how many architects we have in the city of Florence? 15, 16?
During the public testimony, a gentleman that had contacted the American Institute of Architects here in St. Louis said there were 14
Okay,
residents.
so that's out of 35,417 people. That's not a big number, number 1. Number 2, we don't know that all of them or any of them, frankly, would want to serve. Number 3, architects architecture is a profession, just like medicine, just like law. I don't think any of us say to ourselves, when I want to hire an attorney or when I want to go get a physical or get some, diagnosis, that do they live in the city of Wildwood, because that's a tail that wags the dog on this. No, it's expertise. And that's what should be the tail that wags the dog on this. So my motion is that we move forward with B, retaining the ARB, which includes A, but having it with the size and the requirements for architects that have been indicated by the department, along with D, which would have those recommendations from the board come back to this commission, but not including extending the length of service. That's my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
All right,
Might be a
Commissioner.
question.
And I have one as well. And let me ask mine and then I'll.
Well, you're the chair.
Yeah. All right. Just out of curiosity, Kirkwood, Webster, population wise are similar to Wildwood, a little bit smaller. What do either of you know what their architectural review board consists of?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, and if the motion proceeds forward favorably tonight,
Mhm.
certainly as part of the draft letter of recommendation that would be back in May, I can give you that information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious what other St. Louis County municipalities have.
I think the
Right.
differentiating fact here is I do not know of another community, and there may be, and Mr. Young can address this, that has term limits on volunteers.
Right.
The unique component that's associated with the city of
Mhm.
Wildwood.
Yeah.
John?
I can't speak to all of them, but I will note that the Architectural Review Board for the city of Kirkwood does allow for non-resident members.
It does?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Jackson.
The only part that I kind of diverge from the mayor is the extension of the term limits. And I'm going to ask you, I mean, if you think it gives more flexibility, because in 2018, anyone that served before, they can serve again because they don't kick in. And if it allows expertise an extra few years to give more flexibility to the city when we're trying to get someone from Wildwood, if at all possible. If you feel strongly, I would tend to think, let's extend the term limits while we're here. That's the only thing I would diverge on.
Term, not term limits.
I'm sorry, the amount of term from 3 to 5 years. I'm not against not doing it, but if it would give flexibility now, I would be more apt to say, let's include it now than later, but.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mayor Paulin.
So again, if that is made as an amendment, I don't know, I would die on that sword, but I would suggest that we take this one step at a time. That can always be added at some point if the commission wants to do that. I'm afraid doing that at this point, you're getting a lot going on. And I think the concept is that we put the size of the board at a manageable point, number one. Number two, that we give flexibility to the mayor and the council when they are appointing and approving respectively people to the board that are architects as to whether they live outside the city. If we can't find people that, want to serve and would be good for the position and are not term limited. And then number three, those, as the motion is, those decisions come back to this board. So that's a lot to do. And I would just respectfully say that, adding, additional time, again, I'm not saying I would die on the sword, but I just think we're getting a lot going on, and I would stick with those with the ability to do that in the future. Thank you.
Sounds good to me. I won't die on the sword the other way. I just think it might give you flexibility, and the mayor, he's been our mayor, term limited out, an excellent mayor. I'll just go with him. That's fine.
I mean, my only point to that is the ARB, where you only have a little over a dozen people who are eligible right now, have a shorter, under the current structure, have a shorter time they can stay on the board than any other commission where their enrollment is a lot more open.
I don't think, point of order, I don't think that's the case. How many years is the ARB?
3 years.
3.
And that's
And these are,
consistent
and
with
we're
some.
4.
Yeah, we're 4, but other boards and commissions, I think we may even have some that are less than 3.
Yes, we do.
So it's
Oh.
not, yeah.
Okay. My apology on
That's
that.
right. This is the longest serving appointed position, I believe, in terms of our boards and commissions.
Okay.
But the ARB is similar to other boards and commissions. Thank you.
And just a couple of points. First and foremost, from a saleability standpoint, it may be easier to get architects if you say it's only 3 years versus 5. That's a pretty substantial commitment. So
Mhm.
that might be a point in favor of the 3-year component. And then secondly, I've not had the personal struggle that the mayors have had trying to find members for the Architectural Review Board. So on this particular point, I would defer to those people that have to call the architects and plead a case.
Mhm.
And obviously, it's been difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, Commissioner Rubus?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand what's going on. We're going to vote on this motion, and we're going to retain the ARB. We're going to reduce it to 3 members. We're going to keep the term at 3 years. What is the ability to bring in outside consultants? Is that in this motion?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Who decides when we go outside?
The mayor and the city council. So they're the ones who currently decide who goes on the board. It's like a pinball machine. So the ball starts with the mayor's appointment. The council has to approve that. So it would be the same thing.
Well, what I am envisioning is we have an ARB. There's 3 guys on the board. They're licensed architects. They're reviewing plans. Do they say that this is more than we can handle? We need outside help? Or where does that
So
decision come in?
So great question. So it comes in with respect to the appointment. If the mayor, in looking at appointees to the board, either cannot find, and I think that, back up, of the 3 positions that it would be the resulting composition, up to 2 of them would need to be licensed architects. 1 would not. And with respect to the 2 that would need to be licensed architects, if the mayor is either unable to find an architect in the city of Wildwood that 1 wants to serve, and number 2 would be good for the position, then, and only then, as to those 2 out of 3 positions, could the mayor go outside and recommend to the city council to approve a licensed architect who does not live in the city of Wildwood.
Okay, so if we have 3 licensed architects that are willing to serve, we don't have a problem with going outside. It's only when the Architectural Review Board falls below what's required.
Who are willing to serve and who the mayor and the council believe are good for the positions.
Okay. So if we got 3 guys on there and 1 guy, tree falls on him and kills him and nobody else wants to serve, then we can go outside and get somebody else.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to find when and how.
Commissioner Cohn?
Will there still be a liaison with city council and planning and zoning with the new structure?
With the permission of the chair.
Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Cohn, not necessarily, because all recommendations from the review board would come to Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission obviously has Planning and Zoning Commission members, so there's not a need for a liaison. The 8 regular members would participate, and there is a council liaison on Planning and Zoning Commission. So from that perspective, that individual would serve that role.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion?
Well, the only thing I would add, if I could, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
is, I mean, this structure and the viability of it and the way it works relative to the comments that we've had that from people who did not want to have the ARB disbanded, it accomplishes their very concern, unless the concern is that they're the ones on the board. But it accomplishes the concern of keeping the ARB and architects within the city of Wildwood to the extent possible. Thank you.
Right. And like I asked, if you when this comes back next month, if you could get me examples of what some of the other St. Louis County municipalities are like, their size and terms and all of the, and basic rules. Appreciate it.
Point of information, I think we actually looked at that when we started, and what we found, and we can bring it back again, but I think what we found was it was a range from not even having the board to having it, as John said, with people outside the city and so forth, but we can. get it
And
back.
I'm kind of interested in this, in the size of the board as much as anything.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. All right. Think we can have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost votes yes, and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Mr. Newberry, PC 39-94.
A recommendation report of the Department of Planning upon the final set of site development plan SDP sheets, including the landscape plan for St. Louis County's PC 39-94, the Grover Company, amended C8 plan commercial district, north side of Manchester Road, west of the Taylor Road roundabout, St. Louis County locator number 24V540163, street address 16917 Manchester Road, which were requested to be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission for its action before the release by the Department of Planning, Ward 8.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared a recommendation relating to a landscape plan that has been submitted by the owners of Lucky Dog Central. Lucky Dog Central is a small business that caters to dogs, pets, that is located on Manchester Road in the historic community of Grover. As is referenced in the report, the owners of the business removed vegetation, woodlands in the rear yard area of the property without authorization from the city and contrary to the approved site development plan. Ultimately, the owners submitted a request for allowances relative to that removal of the woodland areas that was rejected by this Planning and Zoning Commission. With that rejection, the department began the process at that time in obtaining the necessary restoration plan for the area that had been disturbed. The Planning and Zoning Commission asked that that restoration plan be returned to it before final action by the city. Tonight, the department is presenting that restoration plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission and would note a couple of items relating to it. As with any landscape plan, restoration plan, or any plan that includes any type of woodlands, the department submits it to a consulting landscape architect. In this case, the consulting landscape architect recommended that there be substantially more trees added to the property than what was shown on the submitted plan. In fact, the landscape architect recommended up to 24 deciduous type trees with a minimum size of 2 to 2.5 inch caliper. The department had recently done an analysis of another restoration plan where bids were received relative to the installation of plantings for that particular case. And in this case, using those amounts cost, the recommendation from the consulting landscape architect could have a cost up to $20,000. Again, remembering this is a small business that's been closed recently for remodeling and some other new opportunities in the building. Therefore, tonight, the department, for the most part, is saying that's not a reasonable approach. That in this instance, the department believes it could actually harm the business. And certainly that's not the intent of the commission in its recommendation to see the restoration plan. Therefore, the department is recommending a restoration plan be approved, but allow smaller caliper trees to be utilized, 1 to 1.5 inch. And to remove the landscaping that was proposed along the fence line that is common with a residential property to the east, because the fence will provide the screening, and to allow 1/2 of the plantings to be installed this year and then in spring, and then the remainder this fall, giving them time to open the business, recoup some of the costs, and be in a position in the fall of 2024 to proceed forward. And then finally, to install turf lawn to basically manage erosion and dust. So tonight, the department is presenting a recommendation, not a plan, that would be contrary to that of the consulting landscape architect and the submitted document from the property owners. The department believes it's reasonable, given what has occurred on the property relative to mature woodlands, but recognizes that it's a small business, and in this case, the smaller plantings, the staged installation, and the reduction in some of the plantings along the fence line would have a benefit to that small business and still achieve an outcome that the department believes is reasonable. And with that, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the department will conclude its presentation and accept any questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Broyles?
I have seen some things, and I would like to compliment this committee for thinking of them, the owners, and making another plan that could still work for them. I do have a question about their fencing, because that's been put up and then taken down, and then put up again, and then taken down. Now, not the whole thing, but however the slats were supposed to go in there, whether they go vertical or horizontal, I don't understand what the holdup is now for the fence.
I think the owners of the property have kind of been waiting till all of the issues have been finally resolved. And so from that perspective, they removed the slats that were horizontally installed on the post instead of vertically, and they've retained the post in place. Some of those posts, particularly those in the front that are visible from Manchester Road, must be removed based upon the commission's action, and that will occur. I have numerous emails from the property owners, the business owners, saying such will occur. But I, again, just think it's been a matter of waiting till all the items are addressed so they can do it just all at once.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rubis?
Just so I understand, the owners went in and did some deforestation without permission, and in order to restore it, it takes $20,000.
Under the recommendation of the consulting landscape architect, and the consulting landscape architect used our tree manual for those purposes. So yes, it is a city requirement. The department believes the $20,000 estimated price tag is too much.
But then is it reasonable to say that they did $20,000 worth of damage?
Based upon the site visit of the landscape architect, consultant, reviews of aerial photography, both from a Google source in St. Louis County. Yes, I believe it's reasonable, because we had another instance where property was damaged with removal of woodlands, mature trees. We went through a process through the municipal court. We're still in it, in fact, and the numbers are significantly high. Again, the numbers aren't just the purchase of the stock. It includes the installation.
Labor.
Yep.
The other question I had is that you said that the business is shut now for remodeling and an opportunity to pursue some other venue. Is it reasonable to believe that they are going to open up at this place if we give them the relief?
I believe so. There has been activity at the location in the interior of the building. The business owners have continued to submit information relative to this particular requirement and other requirements. And so the owners continue to invest in the property and the process, which is a key indicator to the department that yes, they're very eager to open.
Okay, I certainly agree. I think economic development is key to the city, and I don't want to be put in a position of stopping that. So I have no problem.
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes, a motion and second with a roll call vote to endorse the 4 items the department has identified for the restoration plan.
Commissioner Clayton?
Make a motion to approve the department's recommendation.
All right, second by Commissioner Broyles. All right, any further discussion? Roll call vote?
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus, Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, update on the residential reoccupancy permit program?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you'll recall, this particular snowball started at the top of the Planning and Zoning Commission's mountain. And since that time, with its recommendation, the Planning and Parks Committee of City Council and the Department of Planning, along with St. Louis County, have been working through a reoccupancy program. That reoccupancy program is only for rental units, regardless of type. They can be detached, single-family dwellings up to the largest multiple family complexes in the city. As you can see from the report that's been prepared primarily by Ms. Ripito, our Assistant Director of Planning and Parks, many steps were set forth by the Council Committee to ensure public input and to provide information and data about the proposed program to those most impacted parties, those that own rental properties in the city of Wildwood. As the process has wound through different steps, we have addressed almost all of the concerns that have been voiced by either City Council or the Council Committee of City Council. And we've held a public input session where approximately a dozen individuals, either in person or via Zoom, participated. Those individuals can express certain concerns about the program, but again, none of them were not expected in that it is another process that will impact rental properties. But as we've described and the commission endorsed, it is all about life safety, property maintenance, and reducing nuisances. So tonight, the department just wanted to update you since you were integral in the start of this process. And Ms. Ripito, Mr. Young, Mr. Newberry, and I are available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you again.
All right, if no questions, PZ 1 and 1A-99. Mr. Vin, or, oh. One of you.
I'll take care of it, Mr. Chair. Thank you. PZ 1 and 1A-99 WJ Burn Builders, Inc., 3112 Shady Glen Estates Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. Requests to amend existing planned residential development overlay district ordinance number 1189 to accommodate changes associated with the redesign of this residential subdivision that was originally approved for 23 total units on individual lots to be located on an 18.33 acre tract of land, which is located on the north side of Strecker Road, east of Englebrook Drive. Locator numbers 22U240024, 22U330031, and 22U330062. Street addresses 177 Strecker Road, 165 Strecker Road, and 173 Strecker Road. The modifications reflect changes to the site due to environmental considerations relating to a restrictive covenant approved and signed between the property owner and the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, which has necessitated changes to its previously approved design. Removal of an inactive item from the not ready for action agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. This agenda item has been on the listed on the not ready for action section of the commission's agenda for many years. And as we started last month with a couple of solar panels that had also been inactive and on the not ready for action section of the commission's agenda, the department is requesting that the commission a motion, a second, and a voice vote to remove this item from its agenda. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. This is from, looks like it's 25 years old, if the dates are right. All right, any further, Commissioner Rubis?
Who is the owner of the property?
It is a development entity called Claymont Development.
Okay, is that include Vern Builders?
I believe they're one and the same.
And Mr. Chair, before I should have offered Mr. Young if he wanted to add anything. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's see here. So we've got the motion. All right. All those in favor, or can we do voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And looks like it's time to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Clayton, second by Commissioner Broyles. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming out with the weather
Be
being
safe,
inclement.
everybody.